Ladies and gentlemen, Tall the Traveling Clack coming to you live today with a little bit of a spicy, controversial edition. We're talking about RudyRochman. And I know I've never touched a piece of content about Rudy before, but I have a piece of content that's, I don't think, very controversial from him. Something incredible that I want to touch on that I think is incredible that he's doing. Let's take a look at this right now.
This is in no way a Jewish Keffiyeh. This is a Jewish Sudra. And just like we have the Jews and Arabs are our cousins, you have the Sudra and the Keffiyeh is our cousin. That came a little bit after us. Shalom, hi, my name is RudyRochman. I'm a Jewish and Israel rights activist. A big part of my life mission is to decolonize the identity, the way of life, and the outlook of the Jewish people, and to bring back elements of our culture, which is why I created my Sudra, bringing back the Sudra to our generation. So the Sudra is an ancient head covering of the Jewish people. Many times when people think about Jews, they think about the kippot or the yarmulke that we wear around our heads. However, if we went back thousands of years ago to our ancestors, none of them would be wearing kippahs on their heads. Now, the Jews that were living in Europe, that were living amongst Europeans, started to dress like Europeans in order to blend in and to not be persecuted. Now, you couldn't wear a head covering around your head, right? So you had to minimize the sudra into a kippah in order to hide your identity for people not to realize who you were. So you can wear it on your shoulders as a shawl. I usually wear it as a hood. My ears get cold, I wear it like the Baba Sali, but there's also the more ancient cultural way of wearing it, which is wrapped around your head, which you wear like this. And the whole goal of creating my sudra is not to create profit, but to make an element of our culture re-accessible for the generation. And anyone who's wearing it is basically saying to the world and everyone who sees this, I'm an empowered Jew or a supporter of the Jewish people, and I'm not afraid to be who I am.
So Rudy's always been a visionary, and I know that in Jewish circles, he can be controversial to certain people. While I personally don't want to take any sort of official stance on things, because I know anytime you talk about Rudy, it always comes with like comments where like, oh, he said this. Put that to the side for a moment, okay? Now, for a little personal insight, I may be biased because I grew up around Rudy. We've been family friends for a very, very long time. I love his family dearly. I love him dearly. The thing is, ever since we were kids, the man has always been a visionary. And this is, in my opinion, one of the most... I think that my Sudra, what he has created with my Sudra, is going to be looked back on in the future as like a real pivotal moment in the Jewish people's history where they started reclaiming things that were theirs. So for the longest time, even in American circles, I've seen this multiple times when I'll wear a keffiyeh or when somebody will put a keffiyeh on, they'll be like, oh, that's a terrorist scarf. Here's the reality. You need to understand that what Arab colonization did to the Middle East really whitewashed, or I would say Arab washed, a lot of artifacts and things that were indigenous to the multiple ethnicities that existed in this land, in the Middle East and North Africa, and turned it into like a sign of Arabism, pan-Arabism, Arab colonialism, and sometimes racism or supremacism. So people now, they associate a thing like a keffiyeh as a terrorist scarf, when in reality, like I've talked about ad nauseum, and if you haven't seen my interview with CBN News or my video that's gone viral of me talking about it on college campus, the keffiyeh has nothing to do with Arabs. It comes from the city of Kufa in Iraq, which used to be Mesopotamia, okay, before the idea of Iraq was even a thing, or the idea of Arabs were even a thing. And it is not a colonial scarf. It is not an Arab scarf. It is a scarf of the fishing people of ancient Iraq. That's what it is, of ancient Mesopotamia, of ancient Babylon. The Jews wore it, the people of Iraq, the Mesopotamians wore it. And the same thing with the Sudra. The Sudra was an ancient head covering. You have to remember that at the core, Judaism, the Am Yisrael, Judah, all of this is in the Middle East. All of this is in the region of the Middle East and the Levant. So we're not a group of people who used to walk around with suits and hats. Now, while I'm never going to be the one to shame anybody for wearing a suit and a hat, I was like Rudy, for example. A couple months ago, I was in the old city of Jerusalem. I was sitting down, and I was looking at the old city gates, and I watched Arabs come in through the old city gates, and I watched Jews come in through the old city gates, and I wondered, why do we look so out of place sometimes in the Middle East? And I was even looking at a Mizrahi Jew, like a brown-looking Jew, wearing the top hat and the coat, which is not super, super common. And I was thinking to myself, where did this come from? So then I Googled it, and I realized that this whole top hat and coat thing, it came around, it's only 200 years old or so as a custom of Jewish people, specifically Ashkenazi Jews from Poland, who wore this as a way to court the higher, richer society in Poland. This is what they used to wear. This is what they wear for the fancy noblemen of Polish society. They used to wear the top hat and the coat. And so and in Judaism, you have a concept that on Fridays when Shabbat is coming in, you want to bring on your best clothing for Shabbat. You want to bring on your best clothing for God. So you want to look your best. That's when you shave. That's when you clean up. That's when you get a haircut. You dress your best because you want to show out and show up for God. And so this idea of wearing your best, especially on Friday, came out of there. And then it just kind of became established in the Jewish society in Europe that this is what you wear. And you have notable figures like the Rabbi Lubavitcher Rabbi from Chabad from 770. Who is one of the biggest notable figures as of the modern day of our lifetime, popularizing the suit and the top hat. Now, there's nothing wrong about wearing the suit and the top hat. By all means, if that's your expression of Jewish identity, go for it. Like, I have no problem with it whatsoever. I just always wondered, why do we sometimes kind of look out of place in the Middle East wearing this suit and top hat? And then I realized it was because it really had no place in the Middle East. This is something that came from the diaspora in Europe. And so when you have somebody like Rudy pushing for a garb, an ethnic garb that we used to wear, definitively Jewish people used to wear it. You look at the Baba Sali, like he brought up in there. You look at some of the bigger rabbis from Iraq, they used to wear it. You look at a lot of the bigger rabbis from Algeria and Tunisia and Lebanon and Syria. Many of them used to wear some sort of headscarf, sudra-like article of clothing. This was typical to the Middle East. And if you go past, by the way, I did see pictures of this. If you go past 200 years ago, when you see artist depictions of Jewish people in Europe, for example, I was recently in Athens in Greece, a place that was both a home to Mizrahi, Sephardi, and Ashkenazi Jews who at different times lived in Greece. You see, if you go past 200 years, they're not wearing any top hat and suit. They are wearing something that looks very medieval Jewish from the times of King David. You see cloaks and garbs and scarves and all kinds of clothes that looks very indigenous to the Middle East, something that you would even see some people who are Arabs or Arabis today wearing. So when I think of Rudy and what Rudy is doing with My Suja, first of all, go right now, if you haven't, and support our brother Rudy, because however you feel about Rudy, he is a visionary, and I appreciate his work so much, and especially in this department, specifically with the Sudra. Regardless of how you feel about anything else, this is one of those things that is going to be really, in my opinion, a pivotal moment for the Jewish people, where they're going to be able to look back and say, this is a point where we reclaimed something that was ours. You have the Temple Institute, which is also seen as controversial in Jerusalem today, reclaiming ancient Jewish instruments like this brass or silver horn that was played in the Levitical choir in the temple. You have Jewish people going out and breeding and taking care of the red heifers, which, regardless of how you feel about the whole sacrificial thing that comes with it, the red heifers was something that Jewish people ethnically tended to. You have all kinds of Jewish farmers in the land becoming shepherds again in the West Bank and Judea and Samaria. So this idea of reclaiming the stuff, we're no longer in the diaspora. Let's reconnect physically to the things that used to bring us back to who we were, to how we prayed. I, for example, took a step in this recently in my life. I recently started wearing this. This is something that I actually used to wear as a kid. Something similar. It's known as a tarbush, or sometimes known as a Bukharian kippah. So when I was a kid, if you look at pictures of me in Jewish school, I didn't wear a tiny kippah. I always wore a very big kippah that covered my head, because at certain points in time, when the Sudra was fading away and Jews were in Muslim countries and sometimes had to hide their Jewishness as well or fit in with the Muslims, they used to wear a hat like this called the tarbush. Now it's becoming popular in Tzfat and in Jerusalem. It's known as a kippah tzfatit or a kippah Yerushalmi. But this is something, if you see in my presentations when I'm doing speaking engagements, I wear this kippah because this makes me feel more connected than the traditional kippah. And even before that, if you look at the kippahs that I've been wearing for years, it's always been these woven, larger, maybe you would consider them Islamic style or Middle Eastern kippahs. I never felt connected to these tiny kippahs. Now, do you have to do this? No, it's just a point of self-expression. But it's something that binds me to my Jewishness more than anything else. I feel like this kippah represents a story behind my people. At certain points, the Ottoman Empire colonized Iraq. At certain points, it colonized Jerusalem. So there was probably a good chance that many people, my family members, wore a tarbush throughout their lives. And so I like the idea of kind of reclaiming that part of my ancestry. I think it's a beautiful thing. Now, what I will say is, Rudy has inspired me so much so with my Sudra and how amazing this movement is of reclaiming something from our past that I've actually been working on a concept. I can't release any information on it right now, but I promise you I am working on it in the background. Something that hopefully in the future I can launch. So really do keep tabs on me in general, even if you're seeing this video one time and in the future you'll come back in the future. Remember that I said this in this video. I think that Rudy just started the sort of the snowball effect of this. And I hope that more and more Jewish people wake up to the idea of reclaiming more things from our past. And one of my things, I feel like one of my jobs in this, being so knowledgeable on the subject, I want to help and I want to assist in that process. Obviously, hopefully make money, make a business out of it in the future as well. But something that I want to help Jewish people reclaim a part of their past as well. So I'm working on that actively. I can't give any more details other than that, but I promise you it's very, very exciting. I've been working on it for like around a year now. And hopefully in the near future, at some point, I'll be able to tell you guys more about it. But I give Rudy massive, massive props for this. I think it's amazing. I think it's an amazing movement. Go to mysudra.com. Buy yourself a Sudra. Support the movement. Reclaim. Don't let anybody tell you this is a Palestinian Keffiyeh and this is Arab. It's like, no. Jewish people have been wearing this long before Arab identity was even a thing. Jewish people have been wearing a garb like this before Islam was even an idea. So make sure you're able to own this. And it's not in a sense of superiority, like, hey, I'm better than the Muslim and only I can wear this. No, the idea is this is something from your heritage, from your past, no matter if you're a Jew that grew up in Connecticut or in Los Angeles or in London. You have to remember, Judaism, Israel, Middle East, this is a very Middle Eastern, very Levantine reality that we existed in for our entire existence. Okay, for a very long time. The stories of the diaspora are great, and it's great to attach yourself to the culture of the diaspora, but you're home now. Am Yisrael is home now. We can start reestablishing ourselves with the things that used to make us great, that used to make us home. So personally, when I see a Mizrahi Jew, for example, wearing a suit and a hat because he was told he needs to by, I don't know, a rabbinical organization, or that's what he did when he started getting strong into the religion, maybe trying to imitate a rabbi that was big for him, I don't see anything wrong with it, but it does at a certain place. It hurts me a little bit because I say, that has nothing to do either with your diaspora experience or with the experience of you in Israel. Let's reclaim the things that have something to do with us. Maybe a controversial opinion. Maybe some Jewish people will be rubbed the wrong way by this. I don't really care, quite frankly. Don't be rubbed wrong by it because it comes from a place of love, not from a place of hate. If you want to wear a suit, wear a suit. I don't care. If you want to reclaim ancient heritage, do it. I don't really care what you do. I think it's important that we do reclaim ancient heritage. And again, I give Rudy massive props for being the first, one of the first in this space who's really starting to push that idea forward and hopefully make this into the mainstream. Great concept. Get yourself a Sudra. Not sponsored by him, by the way, but get yourself a Sudra because I really believe in the product. And I'll see you guys next one. I love you a long time. Goodbye, class. If you believe in my content and want to support me, just know your help is needed. There's a bunch of great ways to support me, being PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or joining my Patreon community down below. Patreon is the best way to support my channel, and you'll get a bunch of cool perks depending on what tier you join. Another great way to support me is by buying my merchandise on thetravelingclat.com. I regularly drop new merch designs like this beautiful hat, or this amazing shirt, where you can support the channel and get something cool for yourself. I also have an amazing Discord community with people from all over the world. Thank you so much for your support.